Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that, but I just like to say that every once in a while and remind myself of how fortunate, how blessed, how lucky I am to be sitting in this chair, folks, doing this for you, with you. You folks have been amazing. Ever since we made the move to 5 days a week, you folks have been just turning up, turning out, helping us out. When I pushed the envelope and I went to seven, I wasn't sure if you were going to throw me out of a window, but you guys showed up even harder, and I really appreciate it. Our Sunday episodes have become some of our most popular because of you. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. We got to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, that's fantastic stuff. Woo. And you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up. Check them out. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. Deep, dark, rich, beautiful. Just like my wife. It's absolutely fantastic coffee. You're going to love it. You got to go try it. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee. They do all the right things and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. You all know how important veterans are here to us at Power of Man. For those of you who are veterans in our audience, thank you for your service. You know we love you, and I'm very glad that you found a home here with us. Folks, one more sip so I can keep up with this gentleman across the table from me. I'm not sure I can. He's drinking coconut water, so it's gonna outpace me any minute. All right, here we go. Please welcome to the show, author of The Courage Project, Simon Lee. Simon, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good, Rory. Thank you very much for having me on tonight. Really appreciate it. Well, it's
Hey,
tonight for me anyway.
that's right. We got a little time difference. Where are
Yeah,
you
we have.
located? Where are you calling in from?
I'm just about half an hour from London, so we're 6 p.m. here, just after. So
Nice. Okay. Yeah, a little
yeah,
little bit of distance between us right now. I'm in
yeah,
Indiana in the United States, so
I saw that. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. Listen, Simon, you've got a fantastic story. You've got all kinds of stuff that I know we want to get into. As we start, though, just give everybody an idea. Who is Simon Lee? What are you about, and kind of what brings you here?
yeah. Thank you. So I am a courage and resilience coach, um, and I teach philosophy and physical training and nutrition to men and teenage boys, so they can establish a strong guiding principle behavior for their life. So we've very much got a foundation of courage, a philosophy of courage that underpins everything. And then on the top of that, we teach them physical movement, nutrition, and anything that's going to make them more resilient. And I don't know about America, but it's certainly needed in the UK and over Europe. So yeah, there's no end of people wanting to get involved at the moment. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love what you're doing. As soon as I heard about it, I wanted to have you on the show. So again, I appreciate you coming on.
It's a
Um,
pleasure.
I know why I do what I do. And so, I'm always curious when I hear men who are doing projects like what you're working on. What got you into that? What inspired you to get into that type of work? What made you follow that passion?
Well, it was my childhood. It was early life experience. So it was very difficult. So if I go right back to the beginning, we had a history of abuse in our family even before I was born. So my mother would be running home from school at 12 years old to stop her father beating up her mother and hospitalizing her. She says to me, I remember my mother dishing up the evening meal with blood running down her face. And my mother used to hide under the bed, covering her ears whilst this abuse was going on. And I was born into that. And it's almost like I know many therapists and healers have spoken about generational trauma. But I remember being very, very young and feeling the most immense fear, almost like I wasn't in safe hands, I wasn't in a safe environment. And I remember that clearly. I don't remember a time where I ever felt that I wasn't on edge, walking on eggshells. So my mother got out of her family home very quickly. She met my father, who'd also actually been raised in an orphanage in Ireland, I think. So this was a long time ago. So he didn't have any way of being able to love anybody either. I mean, he was a very traumatized man. So you got two people suffering from immense trauma got together. It was never going to work. So
Yeah.
they split up when I was very young, and I stopped seeing him completely when I was 9 years old. So he found a ready-made family of his own, and he just decided not to see me and my sister ever again. And that really hurt. It hurt more as time went on, actually. But unfortunately, we then got an abusive stepfather. So we had an abusive stepfather. We had my mother's brother who was diagnosed as a psychopath, who was also abusive, and we had her father who was still around. So these three men found each other. And I always find that fascinating because we know if you get a like-minded men in a group, it becomes volcanic. It becomes far more potent in their behavior. So I had no masculine role models around me, and I watched my sister be abused for 11 years. In fact, one of my memories, my most strongest memory, is her walking down the stairs because she used to turn the heating off in her room in the winter, so she got freezing cold. And I can't even say on this podcast everything he did to protect my sister. But what I will say is that he would pass her on the stairs and he would just elbow her in the head. And I remember the sound of her head ricocheting off the wall. And she's just a young girl. I felt so ashamed because I couldn't do anything because I was just so young.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with the ideas thinking, why do people behave like that? Why have they got so much hate inside of them? Why can't they love? Why can't they be kind? Why can't they be courageous? And I viewed all those things as separate subjects, courage, love, integrity, but then I found out later on they were all the same thing, and I'll get to that later on. But so when I came out of this childhood, I was deeply traumatized, and I didn't even know it because no one spoke about it in those. I'm 57 years old, so when I was a young teenage boy, no one spoke about trauma or what you should do and how you can deal with it. So you just got shoved out into the world, and I couldn't have a relationship, I couldn't work properly, I couldn't. It was just there all the time inside of me, and I went into bodybuilding because I thought, you know what, if I can make myself as big and muscular as possible, I can stop myself being hurt. So I make myself really tough, really big, and I won a Southern England bodybuilding title. And I thought once I win that title, everything will fall into place. I'll no longer be scared. I'll be okay. And I remember standing on stage with that winner's trophy, and I felt absolutely crushed because I thought, I'm more scared than ever. I'm more terrified than ever before. So I went into a massive depression afterwards, ran every day, literally running and running and running until I collapsed. And then I was ill for 3 to 5 years. It was the past catching up with me.
Wow.
And I was diagnosed with leukemia wrongly. I was left with that diagnosis for 2 weeks. And then they said, actually, you've got blood cell problems, but it's actually acute glandular fever. So it wasn't leukemia. But I
Hmm.
remember thinking, is how I feel worth dying for? Because that's what's going to happen eventually. And I thought, well, let's be curious and see what I can do with this pain, what I can do with this trauma. And I was very fortunate. I met a guy called Peter Hudson, my first mentor. And he was like seeing a lot of the rock stars in the UK at the time. He was very, very well known. For some reason, he took me under his wing and he told me, he was the first man to say to me, your pain is potential. If you can just find a direction for it, you'll have so much meaning and purpose in your life, you won't believe it. He said, so stop going on about your past and find a direction for it, find an outlet. And it was life changing. Having said that, I was really pissed off with him for a while. I was so angry because I wanted to keep the story.
Right.
I wanted to keep it. It was making me hide from stuff and avoid doing things. So I wasn't really ready to give it up. But I was angry because I knew he was right. I knew he was right. And that set me on the journey of learning philosophy with him, Chinese Qigong, yoga, martial arts, and all kinds of things that led me to into being a coach. So, to answer your question in a long way, the coaching was a natural, organic process from my past and from the trauma that I went through. And it gave me the gifts to be able to sit in front of men that either had lost meaning and purpose or wanted to end their lives. And they were looking at me for one reason, one word, one sentence not to do it. And if I hadn't been through that, I would have no right sitting in front of those men trying to guide them from a place that I'd never been. So it ended up being a tremendous gift. It still is. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And I feel myself very blessed to be able to do what I do.
That's there's always a fantastic story behind someone who's impassioned about being a coach, but that's a lot, brother. I mean, that's a lot for any one person to handle like that. I've been there myself, and wow, coaching is a great way to heal that, don't you think?
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You learn just as much as the people you're in front of as you are imparting to them, for sure. Absolutely. It's a two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speak.
I love that. Whew. My goodness. But now the physical ailment that hit you through the bodybuilding and stuff. Now, is that something that was cured and you're over, or is that something that's always going to kind of plague you? I mean, that's I've never really heard of that particular ailment.
Yes, it has gone completely, but I
Good,
think
good.
and I want the people you're listeners to understand this because this is what I was up against, and so I was diagnosed with something called ME. They call it chronic fatigue syndrome, and I think my family paid me to see a specialist doctor, and he said, "You will never train again. You will never be well again."
Wow.
That's what he told me. And it's really interesting, Rory, because my friends, well, I thought they were friends. A lot of my friends celebrated the fact that I wasn't this big muscular guy anymore because they were jealous. So I had some friends, so-called friends, celebrating my downfall. I had people talking at the gym as if I was dead, saying, "Oh, he's gone. He'll never come back." And I had them doctors saying to me, "You just got to manage this now." And I think the pain gave me the strength to go, "No, I've suffered enough. I'm not going to believe that." But that's what anybody's up against. So if somebody gets diagnosed with an illness, anybody listening to this, or if you want to do something incredible with your life, don't expect everybody around you to stand around clapping because they won't. So you're going to have to develop that inner strength to do some incredible things, whether it's heal from an illness or explore your own innate capabilities. But yeah, I decided that I wasn't going to live like that. I'd suffered enough. I wasn't going to suffer any longer. And Peter Hudson, I have to give him his credit. He was the one that said, "Don't listen to them. It's great to have a male mentor to say, no, don't listen to that. You can do this. You can do this." And he'd actually done it himself. He had the same, amazingly, he was a mountain ultra runner and a martial artist that had traveled Japan. And he also got the same ailment and he had come out of it. So he knew that you could overcome this. I will say most people don't. I still see people now that ring me up and say, "I can't believe your story." But it's very much a mindset. You have to be absolutely committed. So I followed the right diet. The Qigong and meditation I did with Peter, I was working up to 4 or 5 hours a day just in this space of presence and expanding my consciousness and letting everything, every belief I had just die away. And it was incredibly profound, those meditation days. I still do it, but not for 4 or 5 hours. I just haven't got the time. But it served its purpose at the time. And it was during that period I realized that the main problem I had was that I felt so ashamed that I couldn't protect my sister. And I felt so ashamed that I didn't get the harsh treatment she got. They were still cruel to me, but I didn't get the treatment she got. And that made me feel really ashamed. The fact that I had to watch my sister, a girl, go through that, but they didn't give me the same treatment. That was, and it was only through meditation that came up naturally, that your shame is caused through the fact that she got it worse than you, and that it caused an immense, and that was the whole root of my stress and trauma, not just what I saw, but how I felt so ashamed of not
Yeah.
having the same treatment.
I totally understand that, unfortunately, because that's what we do. As men, we take that on ourselves and we say,
Mm,
I should have been able to do something, even though reasonably speaking, there's no way that a young boy at your age could have done anything about it. That doesn't make any difference in terms of how you feel, right?
no, quite, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now you said this came to you through meditation.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yeah,
You had a quote that I read. It's a good time to bring it up, I think. And you had said that old philosophies are better than today's conventional therapy. Is that an accurate quote, accurate idea from you?
yeah, yeah.
So, and maybe this is a good spot to kind of interject that. That hit me when I read that because without even knowing what old philosophies you were talking about, I already believed it. I'm not a fan of traditional therapy. But when
No.
you said that, what does that statement mean to you, given what we've just heard from you and what you were dealing with?
Well, I met the usual people when I was young, and a lot of them were women. It's not to take anything away from women, they all mean well. But as a young man, I'd never had a male role model. So I couldn't, there was no point me being coached by women. That's not being disrespectful. I'm very pro women. But if I'm a boy that's never had any male role models, I need men in my life. And the men that I met at the gym, the boxers, the bouncers, I even met the bodyguard of the Rolling Stones, great guys. And they had their philosophy. And I noticed they all had the similar philosophy. So what I realized then was that philosophy means a guiding principle of behavior, whilst therapy really translates to heal a disorder. I don't want to look at one part of my life. I want to look at all of it. I want to be go out there as a man in the world and be able to be a great father. I want to be someone that can actually walk away in the world that's going to improve it. I want to be a man of courage to stand up against injustice. That's not therapy. It's just to heal a disorder. It's to focus on anxiety, depression, or something else. I'm not necessarily talking about grief because that's something different. But what men really want is a guiding principle behavior. They want to feel powerful. That's the way men are. And they want to know that they can live with courage and service and honor, have a have a code of honor that really means something, so they know what they stand for. None of that's taught in therapy. And I would go further than that, as controversial as it may sound, is that now therapy are locked into the very much woke agenda that's going on. And so they're trying to get people back to a place of what they think is normality from a position of a society that doesn't want you to be all that you can be. And I see it in English schools, I see it in over here in the media, I see it in entertainment. So, and the world of psychology is very much controlled now. It's very much you can't say this because their license will be on the line. But philosophy doesn't look at any of that. And the philosophies I'm talking about are clearly things like Stoicism.
Mhm.
Bushido I found to be absolutely incredible if it's translated right, and Peter Hudson taught me that a very long time ago, which is the code of the samurai, but updated for the modern world. It became Budo, the way. I remember when he first introduced me to Bushido, I just thought, wow, why isn't this taught in schools? This is incredible. And it was life changing for me, absolutely life changing. And I still do it. I still have the young guys around to me and we talk about Bushido and they just absolutely love it. Even the grown guys, I say, because we always give away the Bushido poster. No one says, oh, no, thank you. I've yet to have a man that comes over and I said, would you like a Bushido? To say no. Whether they're 50, 60, 70, or teenage boys, they all want a copy of that poster because it's so profound. And I have CEOs in London that read that poster 2 or 3 times a day to reinforce how they want to live and the man they want to be.
Nice.
So I think philosophy, if it's taught really well as a primary aim of courage for a man, therapy can't match that because I think what they're doing is they're tinkering around the edges at symptoms rather than going to the root cause. That's how I feel about it. I know some good ones. I really know some great psychologists that are into stoicism as well. They're into food and nutrition and how it affects the mind. I do know some good ones. But the other requirement I think you need to have is you need to have been broken. You need to have been on your knees. What right have you got, even if you've got a piece of paper, to sit in front of somebody that wants to end their life, if you haven't been broken and on your knees? I think it's a requirement. It's a strange one, but how it's a bit like saying to somebody, I can show you how to run a marathon. I've never done one, mind you, but I can teach you how to do one. You're going to think, well, I'll go to the guy that's run one, thank you,
Right.
because he knows how it feels.
Yeah.
And that's what, you look at the great philosophers like Epictetus, it's like something out of Gladiator, the slave that won his freedom, beaten so badly that he was crippled, and he became this great philosopher. They're the guys I want to read about.
Yeah. I love that. I really couldn't agree with you more on the entire topic, but all the way down to kind of what's controlling things. I appreciate you putting that out there. Again, that's courageous to even say that in public, but I appreciate you doing that. The I think that every man is looking for that type of thing. He's looking for a purpose. He's looking for a mission. He's looking for the ability to feel powerful. And like he has some control in his life a
Yeah.
little bit. And so, to that end, you had mentioned that a man needs to have been on his knees. And I think that that's where the really good coaches come from. for sure,
Yeah.
are people who have been broken and are helping people to get unbroken. And yeah, the coach who has never been broken and lived a nice, cushy life and, maybe got a degree, they're not going to help me. But the guy who was broken down and found a way to get back up, that's a guy I want to talk to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree, Rory.
yeah.
Absolutely. Mm.
I love the way that's where you're coming from. Now you created the Courage Project for all of this. You wrote a book about it, and this is your training program, correct?
Actually, the Courage Project is a it's a short read. It's a 3 or 4 hour read, and it's a statement. And I'm going to send you one after this, Rory. Actually, I'm going to send you one. We send them out every Friday, so I'll send you one out next week.
Appreciate
But
it.
I kind of realized a long time ago, early on, is that we end up. There's that old saying, isn't there? And I think it's a nation deserves the leaders it gets. I think there's an old. It's one of your American presidents, I think, that said that. A nation. I think there's some truth to that. I think we create the world without knowing it. I think we lean into trends and harmful stuff as well that's going on in society, and we actually help back that up and create it. Whether we're very selfish, whether we're manipulative, whether we lie, we create our society. And I think as men, we don't realize how much power we've got. However we behave during the day, we are creating our society because we cannot look at society without including ourselves in it. Each one of us makes up society, so we have a part to play. So I wrote the Courage Project from a position of you're building society whether you like it or not. The corrupt leaders have been put there because we put them there. And what they live in themselves, there's there's a plenty of men on the ground that are living the same way. That's where they, or maybe it's somebody that just says, look, I don't want to take responsibility for my life. I just want the government to look after me. And they're looking for control, and the people on the ground are looking to hand over that control. And there's a meeting. So I just wanted to write a book based on what men can do and the responsibility we have as men, and to be aware that we're building society by our thoughts, actions, and behavior. And I just wanted to be a short, powerful read. And it's the second part that's really quite, well, people tell me it's controversial, which is the rise of cowardice and the decline of courage. So I look at a lot of things that people don't want to talk about, and how we built those societies. And then at the end, I've written about, as men, what we can do about it and to be more aware how we're building the society, whether we're aware of it or not. And it's my first book. I've nearly finished my second, actually, which is on my life story and the coaching, which is Be Kind But Be Fierce. But I wanted a short read for the first one, just to put something out there that will make people think. I think it's done that. I think it's made people sit down and think, that's interesting that we're building society without even knowing it. And that was the purpose of the book. So the Courage Project was about make your primary aim of life at courage, not what you want, not what you want to drive, not the house that you want, but make your life the primary aim of courage and a code of honor, and you'll get everything as a result of that. And I truly believe that. I really do.
It would be easy to sit back and say, okay, so this book is written to men, of
Yes.
course. And so I assume that that is, in a general way, who you're aiming the book at. But in particular, especially when you were writing it, who were you writing this book to and for?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Rory. I think if I'm really honest, I was aiming it at young men, probably between the ages, probably 20 to 30 years old, I guess, because I wanted them to be aware, like, because I wasn't aware that I was creating the world then by how I behaved and what I did, and I didn't do some good things sometimes. And if someone had sat me down, not everyone's got as lucky to have somebody like Peter, like I did, to sit me down and go, all that behavior you're creating, you're not important enough for that not to happen back to you. You're not that important. So if you're going to go out there and do that to other people and some of the stuff that's going on out there, you've got to expect that back at you because you're the one setting the theme, cause and effect. And he sat down and explained that to me, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I never looked at the world like that. I just thought I could go out there and do what I want, set my own goals, and not worry about anybody else, which is what most people do.
Right.
But he was the man that sat me down and said, the world doesn't work like that, Sonny. I said, you are creating it through your actions. So you've got to expect that back because you're not important enough not to have that back at you, how you're treating other people. So I think that's a massive lesson. And I wish cause and effect was understood by more young men to tread more carefully. First, do no harm. And I think you can get everything you want as well, but you can go out there with a code of honor and really create the world that you want to live in at the same time. And I don't think that's talked about enough. I think there's this, we got an exaggerated alpha male thing in the UK where there's one side of coaching is saying, go out there and earn money at all costs and power and don't worry about anything and be this sort of exaggerated kind of like a tough guy. And then there's another side of the spectrum where men are very suppressed. They're still and they're quiet and better not make any ripples because I don't really a bit frightened of how society's going. And they're both a reaction to each other. One side's looking, thinking, I don't want to be like them. And the other group's looking, I don't want to be like them. But they are a reaction. And I think if you're going to start to react to things, you lose yourself anyway. And I always say to guys, it's the mid, it's like Taoism. It's in the middle. It's the middle path where you can feel, you can grieve, but you can also take action without causing harm and being too selfish. And I think most modern men, when they hear that, they lean into that. They understand that because they don't really want to be ruthless, careless guys that walk all over everybody and then, in a claim for fame or money and power. Most guys don't want to do that, but they do want to be powerful. They do want to be successful. They do want to be good fathers and good husbands. So the middle ground I find is quite popular for them when they understand it.
Nice. Nice. As you're talking to those young men, another quote of yours that I really liked was, "Forget your mission and build the man first." So, are you
Yeah.
talking in terms of build the man? I mean, I know that you were a bodybuilder and so on. So, is this in particular physically building? Is it mentally building? Is it emotional? Is it all of it? What's the vision for build the man first?
Yeah, that's a really good question again. Enjoying these questions, Rory. Yeah, so
Thanks.
build the man is definitely a mindset. It's definitely knowing what your responsibility is as a man. So I see a lot of young guys that they don't even train. They're very unfit. They're drinking every day. And I always say to them, so one of the traits of being a man is being protective. What exactly can you protect at the moment? Could you even protect yourself? Are you a guiding beacon for your society? Could you protect somebody in need? And a lot of guys withdraw at this thinking, oh, I couldn't really do that. So we do get guys to do not a full martial art, but we do get them to do physical training. And I like them. I'm quite a tough coach. I like them to do it every day. I don't want this 3 days a week stuff. I want them to train every day. And the reason for that is because it becomes much more of an easy habit to follow if it's daily. Whilst
Yeah.
if it's 2 or 3 days a week, you miss one. But if it's a daily program, and one of the big things we do on the physical training is something called mizogi, which is the Japanese concept of physical, mental, and spiritual cleansing through repetition. So we get them to hit the pad hundreds of times in a workout, and the mind goes very quiet, and they've just got breath, speed, power, and movement. And it's a beautiful thing. So we get them doing a physical training platform. Then we get them to eat properly. We look at their diet and we get rid of the processed foods. Yep, they can go out weekends and have a drink, but I say most of the time, make sure you're disciplined and you can do this. And then we get them to look at what they stand for. And that's where most guys fall down. So what do you actually stand for? What do you believe in? What are your values? And most guys can't answer. They can't answer. I don't know what I stand for. But as the saying goes, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything.
Yeah.
So we get them to a code, and that's where we're bringing the philosophies, and we introduce them to Bushido. We got our own seven courages we teach as well, and we introduce them to those philosophies and those values, and they just love it. They absolutely love it. That for us is building the man, is getting them to be physically fit and capable. And I don't care if they turn into monsters as long as they've got it under control. I think it was Jordan Peterson that famously said, you know, make yourself into a monster or a beast, but have it under control. That's very, very important.
Hmm.
And I truly believe in that. Because I think it's like people like Joe Rogan. He's a great debater and a great speaker, and he can handle himself in a lot of debates. And the reason he can do that is because he comes from this backdrop of physicality. He comes from this backdrop of martial arts discipline. So when you go to the gym, normally you shut the gym door and that's it. It makes you feel a bit better and you think, oh, I'm fit and strong. But I think doing that other sort of training, it changes the way how you move. It changes the way how you debate. It changes how you how you view yourself in the world. And that's really what I want guys to get out of their training. I don't really want them just to look in the mirror and have a six pack. You can have both, but I want it to change how they hold themselves, how they walk, how they liaise with other people, and the energy that they have. And that's a man that's far more likely to achieve his ambitions and visions than somebody that doesn't do that. So, yeah, that's the building of the man from the real basics of that. And we got a framework for it, which is thought, which is the philosophy, food, and movement. We've got a chain that's interlinked. Food, thought, movement. That's the very basics that we teach. Because I say to the guys, I think self-discipline is the beginning of the hero's quest. Because if you haven't got any self-discipline, you're only going to view the world through the lens of addictions or stress or laziness. You're going to see the world according to the stuff you can't get control of. And this is what young men don't understand, Roy. They think, it doesn't matter if I drink every day. It doesn't matter if I take a bit of cocaine at the weekend. But they fail to see, they're going to see the world through that clouded lens of their perception. That cocaine they snort every Saturday night is going to find its way into their lives in every single area. It's not going to be hidden behind closed doors. And the drink, so their lens is always obscured by the potency of their own addictions. So I think having the discipline, that foundation, clears that lens of perception, as the Buddhists would say, and you'll see yourself in the world more clearly and exactly what you can do. So I don't think there's any negotiation on self-discipline. You've got to get yourself together and you'll see things differently as well as yourself.
Yeah, nice. I love that. You're talking about young men and especially what you just talked about with young men and what they do on the weekends and how, they just figure, hey, I'll get through it. I'll do it later. I'm going to enjoy myself now. Another statement that I read of yours was, how young men are disillusioned, by society, and you talk about why. Do you feel like what's going on with young men right now is in fact a societal issue, or is it more that they don't have the leadership from maybe their families or their communities? Curious your thoughts on that because I agree with you that young men are incredibly disillusioned right now. I think there's a young men crisis going on, but I really want to hear your thoughts on maybe where that comes from.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I think it's societal. I think there isn't any male mentors around anymore. I'd even say I've met some brilliant fathers, and they bring their sons along to me because they know they've got skills that they haven't got, and vice versa. They've got skills I haven't got, and I always highlight that to the boys. But there's a real in the UK. It's particularly bad. I mean, we're climbing to like the 70 something percent of all suicides in men in the UK. Over seven is I think it's gone up past 75% now. And just yesterday, Rory, I got an email from a mum that I was hoping to see her son, and he hung himself this very week, in the garage when his mum was out. And that is not a rare occasion. We've got it here all the time. It was an absolute catastrophe. Also in the UK, there's a man called Andy Cook that's just released something called the Justice Report, and it was heartbreaking. I had trouble reading it. It was just heartbreaking. These boys are failing in school. They're killing themselves. Three-quarters of a particular age group in prison didn't have any father figures or male mentors. It is just a whole document that's just that highlights the entire catastrophe that's going on in the UK. And I believe that's the same over Europe anyway. But it's such a good question, and we could probably do a whole conversation on it. But I look at the last couple of decades of men being ridiculed in media, in Hollywood movies, even at school. It's in English schools they have lessons on toxic masculinity, how they're inherently toxic just for being male, and they've got to be careful. All this stuff is causing harm, and I believe if they were taught a philosophy like what we do, I think we could turn everything around. They're just using what was used against me was guilt and shame, weaponizing guilt and shame against these young men and these young boys, and it's causing huge harm. They're growing up. I have to just be honest, super fragile. They're weak. They just can't. They just fold under the slightest pressure.
Yeah.
We've even got guys that they've been seeing a girl for a month and she ends it, and they go and kill themselves or attempt to kill themselves. There's no resilience there, and nobody seems to care. They really don't. They want to make out they want to be seen to be doing something, but no one seems to really care. So I think it's one of the most important topics of our time because if the men fall, the children will fall, and the women will fall. So I think reigniting the minds of men is extremely important, and it's something that I think is more important than any of the current day topics. I really do because having looked at my own work, sitting in front of a young man that wants to die, because and there's not you can't even find a reason at first, but he just feels completely meaningless without any purpose. And I have to say, a lot of the schools in the UK, they will actively tell children, if you don't get these grades, your life's over. You're never going to get anywhere. I mean, how dare they say that? And I tell these lads, you've got value just for being here on this planet. You have value just for being here. It's hard to get here, easy to leave, but it's hard to get here. So, yeah, and the paradigm shifts are so great for these young guys when they come over. It takes a while for them to understand what I'm saying. It's because they're not being told anything like that anywhere. So it's a big conversation, Rory. But I think that society has not helped. I think the men stepping down has not helped. Do I think it's deliberate? Yes, I do. I think it was deliberate. I think because society is easy to control once you disempower the men.
Absolutely. I appreciate all of the aspects of your answer just now, and I think that you're right. I think we could do a whole episode just on that one that one
Yeah.
topic. Unfortunately, so I love that you have the opinions you have, but of course, but I love that you're doing something about it, and you've got two courses that you're doing. One is the Kingmakers, and one is the Young Kingmakers. Tell me about the Kingmakers first, and let everybody know what it is you're actually doing about these issues.
So yeah, we come back to our first part of our conversation about therapy and philosophy. I'm basically giving people an alternative. So I'm basically saying we've got this 6-month program called the Kingmakers, and we're going to teach men our 7 courages, which starts off with the courage of responsibility, always a hard one, and then we go on to self-discipline, mastering fear, the courage of self-protection, keeping out negative forces away from you. So we go through all these different courages, and it's a building block. It's a platform for men of any age, but the young guys are enjoying it, so they can find a way, a guiding principle behaviour that's really meaningful for them. But also all the elements of self-discipline we spoke about. So how to train, how to eat, and that philosophy of living, that code of honor that underpins our life. And a lot of it is some of the questions are interesting, Rory, because a lot of guys come along and say, I don't even know how to treat a woman anymore. I don't know if I should open the door for her anymore because some of them get angry. I don't know if I should, be pulling her chair out at dinner. Is she gonna be angry? And I always say to them, do it anyway. Know what you stand for, know what your code is, and live despite how people behave. And do it, you're doing the right thing. And that's the thing, because otherwise, if you're going to start thinking about, should I pull the chair out? Should I open the door for her? Should I walk on the outside of the road when is she going to get angry over it? I say she's not for you anyway. Because I think the confusion of men has created a confusion within women as well. Because they're not sure of their identity anymore, because men aren't. And we very much complement each other. So that's really popular conversation with young men, which people might want to be interested in, is I don't know how to treat a woman anymore. Will she get angry if I open the door? Should I walk on the outside of the road like you suggested? What she might think those times have changed. And I always say those times haven't changed. Not underneath it all. It's just an illusion going on around you. Those times haven't changed. You're still a man, it's still your responsibility, you're still the protector, and that's still your purpose. So there's a lot of stuff in there in the Kingmakers. There's a lot of stuff in there, but we need it because so many elements of society is fragmented now, and we brought a lot in. And they always hit us with something new. The guys they always ask us a question. We thought, oh, I didn't see that one coming. So it's good, yeah. But yeah, it's like a full on 6-month course on really practical, applied, ancient philosophy that's going to completely transform your life. And it
Nice.
really does, because it did for me as well.
How is that? How does it differ then with the young kingmakers? I'm sure there's some focus difference, something, right?
Yeah, the young kingmakers, we noticed that the teenage boys were really struggling, and at the moment we're just collecting interest. So we've got to register your interest here form,
Hmm.
because it was obvious to me the amount of parents that were bringing their teenage boys to me with porn addictions. And let me tell you, I'm going down to the age of 9 on the porn addiction.
9.
9 years old.
You don't need to hear anything else about what's happened to our society except that statement
Yeah,
right there. That sums
yeah.
it up so well. Okay, 9 years old. All right.
9 years old. So we got a lot of, so that's probably about the youngest client I have from 9. But for the teenage boys, we thought, let's start a young kingmakers. Let's give them this, because if anybody needs it more than anyone, it's them, because they're just starting out. So we thought, well, it's different in terms of we go more into social media. We go more into people pleasing on social media and looking for a reputation or looking to be accepted. We talk about young relationships more with the young kingmakers because these guys are just starting out. So it's not quite geared towards guys that want to be super successful, already running in their careers or chasing a new business or something. We've given it to teenage boys and what their concerns are, which is young relationships, meaning in their life and values that they can that are really going to serve them well. Just protecting their own family in terms of knowing their responsibility to their younger siblings and to their mum and dad. So we've made it very much for teenage boys. So it's different, but the same philosophy applies. But we have changed it so the teenage boys can understand it more. But social media is a big one because so many young guys have got embroiled in social media and they're looking to be accepted on there. They're looking to boost their self-esteem only through external opinion only. We've had this with some girls as well, but we teach them that you're not going to get any self-acceptance through social media. You have to find it within yourself and you have to control it. So we talked to them about ambition, how healthy it is, because even that's been slated.
Yeah.
So we talked to them about directing their energy so they don't dissipate their energy. So we very much do talk to them about the dangers of porn. Not enough people are doing that at all. We talk about how that will dissipate their energy. They won't be able to focus on the things they really want, and eventually it'll obscure and deform how they view women and girls completely. And we teach them that the courageous boy will just devote himself to his lady if he's dating to the woman that he wants. Yeah, so there's a lot in there, Rory. There's a lot in
That's
there.
and again, I applaud you for doing it. I really do. The you wrote the book, you got the programs going. I'm going to go ahead and I guess hit you with this because I think you're more than qualified to answer this one. But there are young boys right now that are out there in the United States, especially. There's a new movement of kind of young lions that are subscribing to these beliefs you and I are talking about today. They're unapologetic. They are tired of being persecuted. And the only thing they're really lacking right now is leadership, you know? And so I see this happening naturally with these young men because they've had enough of what society's doing to them. What I'm not seeing is men that are more, our age or maybe a little younger, stepping up to lead them and help them with that. And so, what can be done? What can be said to the men who need to step up and help lead this new resurgence to get them up off the couch, to get them back in the game and maybe rekindle a little bit of hope in those guys? Any thoughts you have on that? I'd love to hear
Yeah, that's another brilliant question, which we could spend another podcast on that one alone.
them.
Yeah, it's a massive factor. I think that fathers, I researched ancient cultures. I've been quite obsessive in my life because it was a big thing for me. And I noticed that at 7 years old, that the boy would just go off with the father, whether they were working the fields or whether they were warriors, whatever it would be, around about seven years old. And I think what men have done is they've stopped mentoring their sons. And I think that is terribly sad. And I spoke to a guy the other day when we had this, he came to me for a session and he's lost contact with his boys. And we spoke about his childhood. And he said, I just handed it all over to the school. I was just working all the time. I didn't take much interest. And he said, and naively, I just thought, when they leave school and we get a career, we'd still be close. And I said, well, you never were close because you never mentored them. And I think it's a massive, massive failure on the part of men is that for some reason they just handed it over to the school, handed it over to the women to raise their sons, and they didn't get involved enough. But here's the thing, the father, and it's really sad really, he's the first boy's hero. He looks at his dad. He doesn't care what he says, he looks at what he does. So if you've got a dad that's drinking and overweight and just telling them what to do, they're just going to see they're going to see the belly hanging over the jeans. They're going to see all the alcohol they're consuming. I got some really graphics examples of this, but maybe another time. But if they would just take an interest, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. If they see the father train physically, they're going to train. If they see the father eat the right food, they're going to eat the right food. The boy is so closely connected to the father when he's growing up. He's absolutely crying out to be mentored by him. He really is. He just wants to be mentored by his father. And I think fathers forget that. And the ideal solution, Rory, would be for fathers to reignite their own minds and say, right, enough. Let's not hand our children over to the state anymore. Let's raise them ourselves. Let's ask them simple questions like, what did you learn at school today, son? How was your day? What did you learn at school? Did you learn anything new? Have a discussion. Eat round the table. Don't have TV meals. Eat round the table like a family and be the head of that family and take control. Make sure the boys even get mentored by other men by the skills you haven't got. Make sure it's you that instigates it. This is life-changing stuff, and it doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes the real interest in mentoring your sons, and the whole bloody world will change if we did that. The whole world would change. It really would. That would be the best solution, Rory, would be fathers to go, right, or any potential fathers. When I have my son, I'm going to mentor him myself. I'm going to make sure he understands the values, make sure he's courageous, know what his responsibility is, how to treat a woman. But I will lead by example because it's the only way you can teach. That will be the ideal solution. Fortunately, because they're not doing that, we have to have things like young kingmakers. We have to have other options because they've stopped doing it. They've
Yeah.
stopped doing it.
Wonderful answer, and I appreciate that very much. I know the listeners do too. Um, I love what you're doing. I wish that we had 1,000 more like you. To be honest, I think we need a lot more of that in this world. Um, as uh, as we kind of bring this to a close, just for today, because you're right, we could do 3 more episodes on any of these topics.
I'd love
Uh,
to.
I would love to have you back. So we'll have to talk about that and get that worked out. The as we like I said, wrap it up. I want to make sure that I give you a chance to kind of wrap because we've talked about a lot of different topics. This is what you do for a living. This is your mission. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about you want to double down on to leave a message today? A little nugget you want to leave behind, or maybe a word of advice? The floor is yours for however you'd like to wrap today with the audience that's listening very intently to what you're saying right now.
I think I want to leave something quite important, and I came across this just through my own experience, in that we've all heard that the highest value we can have is love. But when I say that to guys, they instantly think sentimental love and they can recoil a bit towards the wall. But when I studied the Greek interpretation of agape love, I realized that what it really meant was for men to hold themselves to the highest level they can, to be accountable to each other, to change the world for the better. And the only way, the only action from that kind of love has to be courage and integrity. Service, risk taking, protection, and integrity, telling the truth, being honest. There can be love no other way. You can't love by lying. You can't love by not being courageous. So I found out that love is the highest value. but it's only expressed through courage and integrity. That's the action behind it. And I think if men can understand that name for that, that's a love that we can all get on board with. And I think that's a love that can change the world. I really do.
Great way to wrap us up. Absolutely great. I appreciate you. Folks, founder of the Courage Project and author of the book, founder of Kingmakers, Young Kingmakers, Simon Lee. Simon, thank you so much for coming here today, for saying everything you have,
Pleasure.
for putting it
Thank you
all
for
out
having me
there.
on.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much, Rory.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, it's been another incredibly impactful episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason that we bring powerful men like this on here to deliver these incredibly powerful messages is because we are united in rooting for you to regain your power. And we talked about it today. It's needed more than ever, especially from all of you fathers out there. And I know you're listening, and I know you hear this. Gentlemen, the reason that we want this for you is because we want you to become better protectors, better providers, better leaders tomorrow than you are today. We want you to become better fathers, better husbands, better men tomorrow than you are today. And the reason we want that for you is because you have value and because you matter. And at some point, you just have to believe that. Until next time.